Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
this morning, our nation's capital and much of the Northeast, including almost the whole of my state, New York, woke up once again under a veil of smog. As we speak, wildfires of unnatural strength continue blazing in Canada, sending toxic air and smoke over the border and over American cities. Today, I'm sad to say, New York City, which usually has good air quality, has some of the lowest air quality in the world thanks to these wildfires. And the problem is even worse in upstate New York. I urge every single American and Canadian impacted by the smog to take precautions to stay safe, follow public safety guidelines in their communities. These Canadian wildfires are truly unprecedented, and we cannot ignore that climate change continues to make these disasters worse. Warmer temperatures and severe droughts mean forests burn faster, burn hotter, and burn bigger. And the warming is happening at a faster pace in countries with higher latitudes. None of this is coincidence. This smoke and fog over New York and the rest of the Northeast is a warning from nature that we have a lot of work to do to reverse the destruction of climate change. Every time we see a wildfire in Canada or in the West, or a monstrous hurricane in the Southeast, or a blizzard in Texas, it's a reminder that time is short to reverse the impacts of a warming planet. And Democrats are proud of the progress we've made to accelerate America's transition to clean energy through the Inflation Reduction Act. But both parties have an obligation to do more. The work to protect our climate is far from over, and we're dangerously behind. Again, I'm proud of the historic work Democrats did last year to move us in the right direction. But I implore my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to look up at the smog today and recognize we must do more. At the top of the list is a good transmission bill, which will greatly enhance our nation's ability to bring clean energy like wind and solar to large population centers and reduce the carbon that is thrown into the atmosphere. Now on trains and safety on the tracks. After the tragic derailment in East Palestine in February and several other derailments in recent months, I called on the FRA to launch an investigation into the safety practices of all Class 1 freight railroads. I have good news. The FRA has just announced that they will heed my call and do a thorough investigation of safety practices within all Class 1 freight railroads. They will investigate the culture of misconduct within the Class 1 rail companies and issue a report on their findings, just as they did for Norfolk Southern. I thank them for their attention on this very critical issue. These assessments by the FRA will be a good first step to identifying the problems in individual rail companies, as well as the endemic problems permeating across the industry. In the last 5 years alone, there have been over 26,500 accidents and incidents, almost 13,000 injuries, and over 2,750 fatalities attributed to rail incidents. 2,750 fatalities. That's close to 10 a day. But instead of prioritizing, no, it's not close to 10 a day. It's because it's over the last 5 years, but it's a lot, okay. But instead of prioritizing safety, the rail industry has cut over 30,000 employees from the workforce, roughly 20%. Instead of prioritizing safety, the rail industry has prioritized stock buybacks to wealthy stock shareholders and lobbied for loosened regulations. Billions of dollars in stock buybacks instead of money going to safety, instead of money going to hire the necessary employees to keep the rail safe. So it's clear there's an alarming trend of the rail industry putting profits over people, which reinforces the need for a full audit of industry practice. So I hope that the rail companies will take heed of the FRA's assessment and make changes needed to protect our communities. In the meantime, I want to thank my colleagues, Senator Brown and Vance, as well as Senators Casey and Fetterman, for their work on the Bipartisan Railway Safety Act. This legislation was reported out of committee last month, and I look forward to working with colleagues on both sides to move it forward. Now on nominations. Later this morning, the Senate will vote to confirm David Crane to be the Undersecretary for Infrastructure at the Department of Energy, a crucial post for implementing the historic clean energy investments secured through the Infrastructure Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. The Undersecretary of Infrastructure is a new role at the Department of Energy, created by the Biden administration with a very important mission: ensure our infrastructure, make sure the dollars translate to lower energy costs, new clean energy manufacturing jobs, and a more resilient energy grid. Once confirmed, Mr. Crane will be especially important for overseeing programs that help Americans lower their energy bills. To take just one example, he'll lead the implementation of a $9 billion consumer rebate program to help Americans better afford energy-efficient appliances for their homes. Mr. Crane will also manage the investments we've made to update America's electric grid, which after recent blackouts like the ones in Texas is absolutely crucial. Mr. Crane is more than up to the job. He has a wealth of knowledge from the private sector as a former CEO of a leading energy company and is one of America's leading voices in the fight for clean energy. He received strong bipartisan support in committee, and I expect that to continue here on the floor. I yield the floor. Note the absence of a quorum.